I want to thank you all so much for devoting your time to join us for the Historically Black Colleges and Universities panel, hosted by the Berkeley Carroll School, Brooklyn Friends School, Packer Collegiate Institute, and St. Anne's School. So tonight we are joined by students and families from all four of our respective schools, and we're especially happy to be in collaboration in this space together. Tonight we'll be hearing an array of different experiences from our 7 panelists, which we're very excited to have. Our panelists consist of current students that attend HBCUs, as well as recent alumni or working professionals that graduated from an HBCU. And they'll be highlighting the importance of their education at an HBCU that has helped them throughout their life experiences, as well as in the working profession. I know a Tuesday, especially May the 4th, aka Star Wars Day, during this time of year is extremely busy for our students, families, and working professionals. And your participation and dedication is much appreciated. I'd also like to give a very special thank you to our panelists for volunteering to be part of this event. It means so much to us, and we're very excited to witness and learn more about your academic and professional experiences. Our goal today is that wherever you and your family are in preparing for the college search process, that you'll come away with a newfound or strengthened understanding of what it means to attend a historically Black college or university. Whether tonight allows you to learn about a new institution, the academic and social opportunities available to students at some of these schools, or the rich culture and history that permeates these institutions, we hope that this intimate conversation provides you with valuable insight. So now that we are all basically in community together, I want to set the agenda for tonight to give you an idea of what to expect, but it's pretty simple. We'll take a few moments in a few seconds, we'll take a few moments for each of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about where they attend or attended college and what their major or profession is. Next, we'll kick the conversation off I'll kick the conversation off asking questions that highlight some of their experiences at their alma mater or the institution that they attend. And then finally, we will open up the panel and the event to all of you in the audience to be able to ask your questions specifically to the entire panel, or for somebody that goes to the particular institution that you might be interested in. So if all that sounds good, I basically just want to set some ground rules in terms of us being in a virtual space. So I ask that you be mindful and mute your microphones unless you're a panelist answering a question or an audience member asking a question. And you can also utilize the chat. If you have any questions, myself and my colleagues will be fielding the chat to ensure that the panelists are hearing your voices and your inquiries as well too. So if all that sounds good, and if my panelists are ready to go, if you can give me a thumbs up. Awesome. We'll get started with the panel introductions. So if we can start, anybody can go first, or if it's easier, I can pick somebody. But if you can start by introducing yourself with your name, your pronouns, your HBCU or alma mater, as well as your major if you're a current student, or your profession and what you do for work.
I'll hop in. My name is Glenn. My pronouns are she, her. I went to Howard University where I studied journalism with a concentration in public relations. Currently, I am a preschool teacher at Packer Collegiate, but I also am a freelance travel and culture writer and a podcaster. So I do a whole lot. And then actually I'm going to make a transition into the communications department at Packer in the fall. So I'll be more in my field, but I've been working in my field since I graduated.
Awesome. We love that. And as the country starts to open up and the world starts to open up, we'll have to get some information from your travel blog.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I could go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello? Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Handley Pirro. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I currently am a junior criminology major, political science minor at
technical difficulties. Okay, so we've lost Handley, but she'll be back. If we can move on to the next person, and
So
then
sorry about that.
there she goes. Handley, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
sorry I cut off.
No, it's okay. So,
Did,
perfect.
did everyone hear my introduction, or should I say it again?
We were about to hear what you were majoring in.
Okay, I am a criminology major, political science minor at Howard University. I'm a junior, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. Hey, Leo.
And do you want to tell everybody where you actually went to high school?
Oh yes, I attended Berkeley Carroll.
Awesome. And can you if you could let the audience know the class that you graduated with, please?
Oh yes, I was class of 2018.
Awesome. Perfect. And we're very happy and excited to have you back. And this is my first time meeting you since I just joined the team, but I've heard so much about you and we're very excited. So thank you so much, Hanley. If we could have the next panelists introduce themselves.
Hey everybody, my name is Keldrick Stevens, pronouns he, him, and his. I graduated from the one and only, the best HBCU in the entire world known to man as the Tuskegee University. I spent 6 years in college admissions at Morehouse and at Vanderbilt. And then now I currently work at Deloitte as a diversity strategist. And my major was political science.
Awesome, love that. Thank you so much for joining us.
I can follow up. Hi, everyone. My name is Tiago Rachelson. I'm a senior sociology major from Miami, Florida. My pronouns are he and him. Yeah, I'm about to be in human resources in Citibank, actually in New York City. So I hope this is not the last time that I see many of you all. I'm super excited to be on this call in general. And I also want to acknowledge the privilege I have to be on this call as one of the only, or probably the only white student, white HBCU panelists. So in general, thank you so much for having me. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much.
I'll follow my brother Tiago up. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jakari Gates. I'm a Morehouse 20 graduate. I majored in English. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm currently serving as a ninth grade English teacher on the west side of Chicago, which is where I'm from, by the way. And I'm looking forward to speaking to everybody tonight.
Nice.
I guess, you want to go, Alia, now? Hello, everyone. My name is Mo. I'm currently a upper division science teacher at Berkeley Carroll. It's my first year at Berkeley Carroll. I attended Morgan State University in Maryland. I said it the Baltimore way. And my major was chemistry. So I was a chemistry major. My pronouns are they, them.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alia McCants. I am a 2004 graduate of Spelman College. So I love all my HBCUs. I had a career for about 17 years in education, first at a school in Boston, and then I went to business school at Columbia, and then I went to Relay Graduate School of Education, which is a national teacher training graduate school. And in December, I transitioned to lead Peloton's external social impact work. So I get to think every day about how to leverage Peloton's amazing assets to advance anti-racism and equity in the world. And I'm very pleased to be meeting all of you this evening. My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And that was everybody, correct? We're good to go. So I hope all the students and families out there, as you can see, we have a pretty diverse group of expertise and interests and identities. So hopefully you're writing down your questions, but I'll get us started. So if you could all briefly describe the kind of high school that you attended, so we can get a sense of what your decision-making process was like, so with us being in the room, an independent school is a different type of education. So I think understanding where all of you went to school can kind of set the tone in terms of what you were looking for in your college process.
I'll go first because I think I'm the odd man out in this group. So I attended Morgan State as an international student. I had no idea of what it was like to be in college or what college was in the United States. I didn't even know what a credit was. So to disclosure, I signed up for 21 credits my first semester in freshman year. I got a 4.0, but my advisor wanted to kill me when they found out. I'm like, how did you not know that I signed up for 21 credits? So it was an experience for me. And to tell you the truth, I'm really happy that I attended a historically Black college, because coming in as an immigrant, if you think about anyone that lives outside of the United States, who gets to tell the story of Black people, at least when I graduated in 1999, that's how old I am, right? But who was telling the story? When you watched, anyone ever saw the show Cops? Right? So those were the images that we were seeing of Black people in America. And that was what a lot of immigrants who didn't, when immigrants come to the United States, they stay within their community, and they still have a very narrow lens for how they view Black folks in America. And so I was really fortunate that I attended an HBCU.
And Mo, your high school experience, can you let us know a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of like Harry Potter style. We didn't have grades. We had these things called forms. And you pretty much graduate high school at 16. And then if you want to go to college, you have to take these pre-college courses, which are like the first year of college. And college back home is 3 years instead of 4. And so the education there is very different. It's structured very different. It's kind of like the International Baccalaureate kind of program. So it's very similar to that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I can go. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I attended Berkeley Carroll. I am a part of this program called the Teak Fellowship. There are several programs in the city, like Prep for Prep, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. So they helped me get into Berkeley Carroll. And I came from a predominantly and actually an all Black middle and elementary school. So Berkeley Carroll was definitely an eye-opening experience for me, because there were students who did not identify as Black. But throughout my high school experience, I had a lot of like leadership positions. I was a peer leader. I was part of the Key Society. I had the opportunity to travel to India. I learned a lot. I did like my high school experience, and my advisor was Miss Middleton. And through Teak and with Miss Middleton's help, that's how I came up with the decision to go to Howard, because I wanted a different experience. I wanted to learn more about my culture, my history, and be around people who looked like me more after being in part of the Berkeley Carroll bubble for 4 years. I hope I answered that.
That was perfect. And I think very genuine and awesome. Thank you so much.
I don't mind going next. So again, I'm from Chicago, but I went to school in this this West Side suburb called Oak Park, and the high school I attended was Fenwick High School, and Fenwick was very different than the neighborhood that I grew up. So I grew up on the west side of Chicago, about 20, 30 minutes away from my high school. So I would catch the train every day to go to high school. But a lot of my peers were pulling up in like really fancy cars, because I went to a predominantly white institution, high school, and a lot of the kids at my high school were really, really wealthy. Like they come from like really like high upper middle class families, and upper class families. And my experiences there, it was very rigorous, and a lot of the times I was the only Black student in my class. But I think what made me decide to go to Morehouse was because and I was class of 2016, similar to the times that we're in now. One of the first thing that happened my freshman year was the Trayvon Martin situation. And I think for people in my age group, that's kind of like the first like major event, at least for people in my age, that made us kind of like look at the world in a different place. It kind of made us pay attention, like made us aware of like some of the injustices that's happening in the world. But Trayvon Martin happened my freshman year, and by my senior year, when it was time for me to pick a college, the Sandra Bland situation had happened. The Freddie Gray situation happened when I was in high school. Mike Brown situation happened when I was in high school, and all of these things were happening. And I felt like at my high school, they were scared to talk about these issues, or they talked really bad about these issues. And I just wanted to go. And also I felt really alienated at my high school. Sometimes I felt bad about the way I may have wore my hair, or I felt bad about the slang that I spoke, or the way that I dress, or the music I listen to, or the type of food I eat. So I think more than ever in 2016, when I was trying to figure out what college I wanted to go to, I wanted to go to a college where I felt safe, but not just safe physically, but safe to be authentically myself. If I'm going to be in a school now, like different states away, and I'm going to be at this place for 4 years, I knew I didn't want to be in like an environment where I felt like, oh my gosh, like I can't really be who I am. So the moment I got to Morehouse College, just saying the upperclassmen, I think every freshman that goes to Morehouse experienced this. When you see the upperclassmen and you just see all these different type of Black people that come from different classes, different religions, different sexualities, like walking so confidently, and like they're happy, and like they just feeling vibrant and fresh, but they're themselves. I felt at home immediately. It was the moment where I felt like, oh, I'm not weird for having a certain type of haircut, or I'm not weird for liking this certain type of music. I felt at home, and I think that's what played a big part in me deciding that I wanted to go to Morehouse College.
Awesome.
In 2016.
Yeah, and one thing that we always say in the Berkeley Carroll College offices is really about fit, and being comfortable and happy at a place where you're going to study. And it seems like you really found the perfect fit of school for you. And it seems like a lot of you, the way you're talking about it, your experiences, you all really knocked it out of the park with where you went and the experiences that you've had thus far. So that's awesome. Thank you, Jakari.
My high school, I went to a majority white high school in a suburban area at the time. My high school is actually an old college campus, so it was very huge. We had a board of trustees. Money was coming in from surrounding areas, upper white class families, driving Mercedes-Benz. I'm like, I've never seen this car a day in my life. Just pulling up to the campuses, students having their own cars, which is amazing. A place where you saw the bulk of white students who were in AP honors courses. And so there were like a few of us, few Black students who were in these courses. And I guess the structure and the way that courses were taught at my high school, I always felt like I always felt ashamed that I was like lagging behind, that I couldn't quite catch the information. And so one of the many reasons why I chose Tuskegee was because, or even looking at HBCUs, was because of the way that teachers taught the content and made it relevant to me. So being able to like teach courses that surrounded hip hop and how like that just resonated with me so well, I realized like I didn't have a problem, it was just the way that I was able to digest the content. And also in high school, I was a very involved student, voted most friendliest. Like I wouldn't say I was popular. I think I was a nerd, but I was still friendly. Happy go lucky, but there were moments where I felt like I had to suppress, my Black boy joy in certain instances, or like suppress who I was. And I just felt like, like being at Tuskegee, or even honestly working at Morehouse in admissions, like I can attest, and being at the AUC, like walking around and just seeing students just being themselves, and just how beautiful that was, and like just sitting in on classes and seeing how teachers were able to connect content and information, it was just so moving for me.
Wow, it's been amazing to honestly listen to some of these stories, including Jakari's, who's my Morehouse brother, and I didn't know any of that. So Jakari, that was really great to hear. Honestly, some of my experiences is similar to Jakari's. I went to an independent school in South Florida that is pretty much predominantly white and Latinx. I kind of had my introduction to Morehouse through our school's diversity director, who was a Morehouse College graduate. He was hired to take over that work. And I got really close with him through my high school years. And he ended up kind of recruiting me to Morehouse. And I think what some of the other panelists addressed is in independent schools, there's a lot, I guess, legacy around wealth, social status. For me, I think I wasn't really interested in the social status element of college and pursuing college. For me, Morehouse, what I loved about it was the spiritual aspect and the mission of Morehouse, which is to develop men with disciplined minds who would lead lives of leadership and service. And for me, there was no other school in the entire country, or let alone the world, that had that type of mission, where the purpose was for you to serve and to receive a historical education that's kind of grounded in social justice movements, especially the civil rights movement. And going to Morehouse, I've definitely found that, and the historical education is second to none. And I'm extremely grateful that I ended up making that decision to come here.
This is awesome to hear all of your stories. So I went to a school called Beacon on the Upper West Side. It's a public school, but very independent in its own ways, very free-spirited. And I had a great time. When I think about it now, I felt like it was just like New York, like quite diverse, all different kinds of people. I hung out with all sorts of folks. And when it was time for me to apply to college, I have to admit, I never really wanted to go to college my whole life. I wanted to be like an actress. I wanted to move to LA. I wanted to do something else. And my mom was like, well, that's not an option. So I went out and looked at a bunch of different schools. I remember going to Emerson because I knew I wanted to work within the communications industry, and noticing that there were so few Black students there. And I connected with a girl that was going there who was telling me that every time issues of race came up, everybody turned and looked at her. And I never had really that experience in high school. And I didn't feel like, it put into my mind that that might be something that I would have to deal with if I went to a PWI. And I didn't want to do that kind of labor. I just wanted to be a student. And I had never really considered Howard, but my mom went there. My family's from DC. So I went and checked it out. And I remember stepping onto the campus, and it hit me just like on a spiritual level. Like it's unexplainable. Like I remember watching the marching band coming through, and it was the rhythm and the energy, and it felt really right in that moment. So I went for it.
I'm just seeing so many similarities and threads through all of these responses. The first time that you step on campus and you just have that sense of recognition, like affirm that, like wanting a place that is designed around you and like around your experiences, like wanting that. So I'll just add a little bit. I went to a really large comprehensive public high school in California, where I'm from. I was in the honors program, like the GATE program, from like first grade on. And so I had different sets of friends at school. So I had like my friends that I ran cross country and track with. I had my like friends from class, and then I had my friends who I hung out with like on the weekends, and all of them identified differently racially and ethnically. And so the friends who I like had AP classes with, I was the only Black girl in the AP classes for like much of my academic career. And I think, that had a lot to do with like how I saw myself as like smart Black girl, but definitely felt like the stereotype threat when I was like I was like, I couldn't get an answer wrong because I was the only one of me in the room. Then I was like going to go to Stanford or St. Mary's since it was close to home. And my mom was like, you should just apply to Spelman. And I was like, we live in the San Jose, like I'm not going all the way to Atlanta. And I was like 16, so I was very bratty about it. Apologies to any of the 16-year-olds or the parents who are dealing with teenagers right now. And I was like, you're gonna put me on a plane and like waste your money and send me to this school that I don't want to go to. And she was like, just go. And so I went for admitted students weekend and stepped foot, not even on campus, in the parking lot, and saw all these Black women who just carry themselves with such grace and such knowledge of self. And there's something really beautiful about walking onto the campus and seeing that it's designed around you. And before the weekend even started, I called my dad from a payphone, because it was 2000, calling out from a payphone, and was like, I'm going to Spelman next year. And that was it for me. And so much of who I am now is as a result of that really pivotal decision.
I love these answers. You can tell how much thought and feeling went behind them. it's such a big step into a future to go towards a 4-year institution that's going to be your home, which is what we really stress to our students is it's not just school. You live there. Majority of these institutions are designed for you to live there and basically build your life there for 4 years. And to see that you all found a place that is, like you say, is designed around you or stimulated you spiritually, intellectually, or socially, really is something that is, second to none. Absolutely. It seems our audience has already started asking some questions in the chat, so we can go to some of those, and then I have some other ones that we might throw in there just in case. So we have a person in the chat that's asked, although there were obviously a lot of pros about being in this type of environment, do you think that there were any outstanding cons?
I can go. That's a great question. I think with Howard, mainly the con would be housing and just financial aid. I'm not sure if everyone else had this issue with their college, but Howard had this financial aid crisis. I wasn't personally affected, but I knew other students who were. So that was the major con for me. But I can't really think of any other cons as of right now, but just like housing and financial aid.
Yeah, I too agree with you, Hanley. I know Tuskegee being a National Historic Site, there are a lot of buildings that we could not touch without getting approval. And so when you drive onto the campus, it is like a bit of a shock for you seeing some of the buildings. I'm looking at Aliyah. A lot of the buildings, they do, for what it's worth, a few of them do look dilapidated, but I will kind of spin that and let you know that what really drew me to Tuskegee more is understanding why the buildings look the way that they do, and being able to actually walk up to these buildings and see some of the thumbprints from some of the students who were taught by Booker T. Washington, who laid the foundation, the brick for each of those buildings. I'm like, oh, that changed my perspective completely, and that's not the narrative that's told in some of the stories. When you go to some of the, when you talk to some of your peers, some of your professors, some of your counselors. So that really captivated me. I will also say, again, another con is definitely funding. But again, working in college admissions at a selective institution, understanding how funding plays, a lot of these spaces, and then working at Morehouse and understanding how funding is funneled down from the government to these institutions and understanding the disparity behind that kind of gave me a clearer picture as well. But again, I was like, you guys don't give me no money. I can't afford this as a first generation student. What's going on? But truthfully, that's where I learned how to hustle. Me and my wife, we were best friends at Tuskegee, and then we later got married, but she's the one that introduced me to what it means to hustle. And so just being able to get on the campus and find my way, finding different scholarships. I became a tour guide, work study jobs, had to hustle my butt off to make my way through Tuskegee. So that, and I will also last thing say that sometimes you can find that some of the HBCUs, they are, I don't know how to use the right word, but sometimes can be conservative in their thinking. And so not as inclusive or as open as what I found on some of the campuses as well. So there are times where I've seen some of my friends who've had to tread lightly in their identity, which is unfair to them. But that is something that I've witnessed on some of the campuses as well.
Yeah, that's such a great point about the hustle, Keldrick. And I found that, I know I really wanted to study abroad, and to get that information was a process. I was chasing people down, getting forms signed, waiting in front of people's offices. Information and processes were not that apparent. You had to really work for it and dig for it. And I had a lot of friends that would come to me later, how'd you figure out how to study abroad? I don't know who to talk to. You have to be on people, I found in my experience at Howard. Something else that I found was, I experienced a bit of culture shock when I first got on campus, being a New Yorker, I think. And And suddenly being around Black folks from the South, especially, I was like, this is something I've never experienced before. I'd go to these parties and maybe listen to music I'd never heard. And I think I entered into it with a bit of a chip on my shoulder and not as much openness to like experiencing all of these different pockets of Black culture. And later on, that became something that was so beautiful for me, like to recognize the diversity within Blackness. But in the beginning, I was running back to Brooklyn on the weekends. I missed home. I was so homesick. And I hung out with a lot of kids from Brooklyn. I was just going with what I knew. So my advice to that would be just like keep an open mind and remember why you chose to go there, because you have an opportunity to meet so many people and to learn so much more about yourself and the way that Blackness looks in so many places.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to process whether my con is like a Spelman thing or if it's just an undergrad thing, but like I found Spelman, there's so much learning that happens in like those 4 years. And there's so much learning about like oneself and so much learning about one's community. And I think Glenn put it really nicely that you really get exposed to the diversity of the Black diaspora in a way that you really can't elsewhere. It's in your classes, it's like on the weekends, it's in the student government, it's in all the activities. And so if I had it to do over again, I would like pace myself a little bit more and like be more strategic in how I leveraged all of those resources, because there's so much that, you know, for like a young person going off to school for the first time, it can be overwhelming. But, you know, you find your people, you find your advisor, you find your team, and you kind of go through together. And my best friends are still the people that I lived with my freshman year. They were like in my wedding, they're like godparents to my children. And so like, truly you find your people and like you stay with them for life, but it's like, it can be a lot, but I think that might just be college. I don't know.
I think it might be a little bit of both, because I think a lot of that can resonate with most people, but I'm sure kind of how you describe Spelman, it's also probably things that are individualized, which is also part of the greatness of the experience too. Kathleen Tate, if I'm kind of pronouncing that correctly, I see that your hand is virtually raised, so I want to be mindful that you can answer your question now, and then I'll get to the ones in the chat next.
Great, thanks. So I want to thank everybody so much. I'm so happy to be here. I'm a Spelman grad. I've got a son at Morehouse. My sister's a Howard grad. My brother's a Morehouse grad. I think this is a fabulous panel. The thing I'd like you to address, I have, of course, all the stats for Spelman, right? As far as the academic excellence, which we haven't really talked a lot about. But just broadly speaking, like the quote from Mary Campbell that says 40% of all Black STEM grads come from HBCUs. They only graduate 3% of them. Those numbers look the same in banking and doctoring and lawyering. Can we talk about that funnel and why that might be the reason why you choose it? There's always people highlight a lot the fact that there is this community that you don't see, but we don't talk about, because we somehow believe that everybody somehow knows that the statistics around Black success are very much linked to HBCU. So does anybody have those? I can talk to them to Spelman, but they look the same at all the others. I'd like them to be highlighted if possible.
I just want to add, I don't have the stats, but that's such a great point. Like one thing that I knew, as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't really like hype on like going to college. I was always like ready for my career. And that's one reason why I chose Howard, and especially as a communications student, because that job fair that they have is like so known for connecting you with so many agencies. And I just knew that the network would be incredible, and that when top agencies are coming to recruit and they want to like diversify their teams, they're coming to HBCUs because that's where the talent is, and it's all right there in that pool. And I had friends that have gone on to have incredible careers by like the first job that they took right out of college. Lots of friends I had were employed straight out of college. This was back in 2013, but yeah.
I just want to add to that in terms of student retention and student excellence. What I notice about HBCUs, I can speak to Howard and I can speak to Morgan, and I have a nephew right now, he's in New Orleans at Willard. they understand where their students are coming from. They understand that their students are coming from all diverse backgrounds in the United States. Some of their students are coming from inner city schools. Some of their students are coming from, suburban schools or rural schools, international. They have a lot of international students at HBCUs as well. And I think understanding that there's so much love and care in the administration and support staff at HBCUs. They know that their students are up against, I would say, the world. And they put so much effort and care, your advisors put so much effort and care into making sure you stay on track. At least that's my experience at Morgan. We had meetings frequently, talking about like what I'm doing, what do I want to do next. There were lots of opportunities to find out about internships, scholarships, they really looked out for us. And so I think that's one of the reasons why, if you are a student of color and you are attending an HBCU, it's like a little family, I think.
I don't know the exact number, but I know in one of my graduate school courses, we were talking about HBCUs, and I do know for a fact that HBCUs are the largest producer of the Black middle class, because not sure the specific percentage, but I know a large portion of students at HBCUs are first generation and or Pell eligible. And so a lot of individuals use that as like an indicator to kind of predict, where individuals will fall on the income spectrum. And so just knowing that HBCUs are able to move that needle drastically and allowing students to reach that level of middle class, to be in a completely different tax bracket, although the taxes will get taken out of our paycheck, but just moving them to that upper echelon area, that's such a beautiful thing to me. Me being the first male on both sides of my family to have gone and graduated from college and to attain a master's degree, I just can't help but imagine where, my life trajectory would be right now if I didn't graduate from Tuskegee to afford me the opportunity to get a master's at Vandy, or my wife to get her doctoral degree from Vanderbilt as well. So I do know that fact.
And I might there's the, they're like the stats, and I could Google and I put some quick ones into the chat about the economic empowerment that HBCUs drive. So there's like the stats, and I can also just say anecdotally that as I've gotten more advanced in my career, sorry, I have a naked 6-year-old right here. As I've gotten more advanced in my career, the circle of people gets at like particular levels of organizations gets like narrower and narrower, and there's always like a Spelman alum, a Morehouse alum, a graduate, and a Howard alum, a Morgan. There's always like one of those people who's in the leadership of the room. And I think that's not by accident. I think it's like, there is whether it was at Columbia, right, when I'm in the BBSA, like there might've been 50 Black students in my class, and I would say 20 to 25 of them came from HBCUs, right? So maybe half came from HBCUs. At Peloton, Peloton is actually relatively diverse, but the number of people who attended HBCUs is disproportionate to the number of like people who attended PWIs. And so I think that HBCUs just consistently punch above their weight when it comes to driving like economic career acceleration. And one more thing, like other thing that's been really helpful is the alumni community. And so as I've gotten more advanced, like when we used to live in the city in New York, and now I live in Westchester, I moved up here. One of the first connections that I made was like with the Westchester alumni chapter, because it's helpful to have like that sisterhood connection. And so if anybody from Spelman reaches out to me like, hey, can we talk about Peloton? I'm just like, yes, like I'll absolutely make time for you because you're my sis. Like if someone, like Morehouse, and there's like, you don't get that level. My husband went to Northeastern, which is a PWI, and they just don't have that level of connection among their community.
Awesome. But then if anyone's following the chat, the panelists are putting some percentages and some links that you can view for their respective institutions to learn more about retention, placement, things like that. So we have another question in the chat. We have a student that has asked, did any of you join a Greek lettered organization while in college, or if possible, would you be able to speak about the Divine Nine culture or any type of fraternity sorority culture at any of your schools?
I'm not a part of a D9 Greek organization, but I am a member of Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International. I feel like Howard has a lot of organizations on campus based off of what you're interested in. I'm specifically interested in law, so that's where I gravitated towards. There's a professional organization, business organization, nurse organization. There's so many different types of organizations, and you have to be passionate about it because it is selective on campus, especially Howard, regarding D9 Greek life, because that's where most, if not all, were founded on Howard's campus. So it is a big deal if you would like to be a part of that. But yeah.
And one thing to kind of reiterate to the audience is that depending what college or university you go to, you can be part of different types of fraternal sorority organizations, whether it's a social fraternity or sorority, a community service fraternity or sorority. There's musical and band ones, anything that has to do with your major, Latino-based, multicultural. So it's not everyone's experience, but it's probably something that is going to have a presence at any institution that you look at, some more than others. But thank you, Hanley, for explaining that. And it sounds like you're a part of a really great organization that I bet provides really great experiences and mentorship along the way. Awesome. So our next question that we have, one second, I'm going through the chat, is we had a question about the medical field, which was answered in the chat, but if somebody could actually answer that out loud because it's been asked twice. So we have a student that's asking, are there any HBCUs that have best programs for medical school or a pathway to graduate studies in the medical field and sciences? If anybody knows if it's their institution or a similar institution that you may have some friends at that can attest to that.
I know, well, depending on the specific medicine, I know Tuskegee, we have a veterinary medicine program. I want to say it's the only HBCU, but I could be wrong. But my best friend is a part of the program, and he literally just purchased a hospital at the age of 29. I'm like, dude, where do you get this money from? But definitely something to look into. And I think Morehouse School of Medicine as well. Here in Nashville, we have Meharry Medical, but I'm not sure if there's like a partnership with Fisk anywhere in there, but I know that it's here in Nashville.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's Xavier University in Louisiana is known for producing, more Black doctors than like every other undergraduate institution combined. Like they just consistently send like Black people to and through medical school. And then I would say, in addition to the ones that Keldrick named, all of the AUC schools have really strong science and pre-med majors. Spelman has an excellent program. Morehouse has an excellent program. Clark has an excellent program. And I know that Howard has one too. And so I would, do your research, but I think they're pretty well regarded and have really high acceptance rates into medical school. And there's also a question about the band and, music and performing arts are like a big thing. So I would extend it beyond this room to include like Grambling has like an excellent music program. Morgan State has like an amazing music program that produces like top tier singers and like traveling performers of all kinds. There's also like the Glee Club at Spelman, like it basically functions like a sorority. There's like it's a big deal, the music at our institutions. So I would recommend checking those out too.
And I think Dillard just did like a publication or something where they're partnering with PJ Morton. I don't know if I may be too old to mention his name, but if you're familiar with PJ Morton, he's like this big time music artist, graduated from Morehouse actually. And he just partnered with Dillard to teach like courses on music or how to sing and how to write music. So definitely check them out.
I'd like to ask a question. So with understanding, a four-year institution or college or university, there's academic opportunities and then there's experiences that I would say complement that, such as study abroad, internship experiences, social organizations, things like that. So if you can think of your experience or experiences, are there any offices or programs at your school that you feel are preparing you or have prepared you for your line of work?
I joined the Morehouse Business Association, which is the largest student organization in the AUC. I joined it freshman year. It's basically a organization that you join at whatever point in your college matriculation, but it's a network of students that help other students that join get opportunities to business opportunities and internships. I joined my freshman year, like I said, and I've from the jump always received help and mentorship in terms of helping tailor myself professionally, talking to the right people, learning how to interview, learning how to approach someone at a career fair. I went to the career fair just a year ago, right before the pandemic started. I went with Jakari, and that was a really great experience. There are so many opportunities to connect with all these different types of companies, colleges that show up. The network and the general consensus of opportunities and internships is extremely heavy at HBCUs, especially Morehouse and Spelman and Clark. Every single year, we have people going to Facebook, Google, we have people going to Amazon. We also have people going to all the best grad schools and law schools. The opportunities are really endless at HBCUs, at least in my experience. And myself, I got an internship last year with Citi. I was on the diversity and inclusion team, and I landed that opportunity through the networking that was available and made available by the Morehouse Business Association and just generally the culture there.
Totally. I just want to add, not specific to an office, but something that I loved about going to Howard was just the entrepreneurial spirit that existed on the campus, and really being able to collaborate with my friends and my peers to launch. We created a magazine. We started a writer's circle and retreat series. We did all these sorts of things on our own. And that energy has come with me throughout my life. So now I host a podcast with two friends that we just got signed to a network, and we've done that all on our own with all of this kind of business savvy and hustle that I think was the seed was planted when I was a student at Howard.
So I'm not sure. Well, so there are two programs that any student that I talk to, I'm like, check these out. They're here. They're looking for students like us, and very few students apply for them. But the McNair Scholars Program is something that I stumbled upon while at Tuskegee, and it's for a specific population of students that attend HBCUs, but they help students get into graduate level programs, specifically continuing on to your PhD, and they pay for you to take the GRE. So I received a free waiver to take the GRE, and it lasted for 4 years, I think 5 years actually. And they paid me to do research on different campuses. I don't know where that $4,000 went, but I definitely spent it once I got back to campus. I'm still upset with myself about that, but they pay you. And then there's also this program that I'm going to drop in the chat called the Summer Research Opportunities Program. Again, if you're interested in research, once you get to the HBCU campuses, a few HBCUs, they partner with some of the Big 10 schools in America, and they allow you to do research there on their campuses as well. And when I say research, not limited to STEM research. So again, I was political science. I was able to do research on education policy in the field of law, psychology, sociology, all the liberal artsy type fields. And they also paid me to do research there, but they allowed me to apply. I think they waived all of my graduate school application fees. So just really eliminating different barriers once I got to college so that I can continue on to get my master's degree and eventually pursue a PhD too. So check those out.
We have two questions in the chat. This is probably gonna be a little bit more difficult to answer, so I'll address the audience. So there's one that says, are there any pre-college programs at your schools that you'd recommend? And then there's another one that's asking about any information on debt post-graduation, and what are the experiences with students, grants, and financial aid packages? So to kind of address the audience from the college counseling perspective and as the moderator, that will probably be more questions that will be geared towards asking a representative from the institution that formally works there, just because policies change pretty quickly. So I just kind of want to have that be a catch-all, but if anybody has any insight, feel free to share it. But if not, we might have to point you towards, a respective member of the admissions team or administration at one of those institutions. Cool. So that's what I figured. A lot of times I would say, just so the audience, things will be very specific. And a lot of times they're case by case, especially with financial aid. So we'd, highly recommend getting in contact with a financial aid office at a particular school or university that you're looking at, just to get a better understanding. And in terms of pre-college programs, a lot of times if you Google pre-college program and the name of the institution, a catalog will usually appear that allows you to navigate those offerings. And a lot of times there'll be a wide array of different things that they offer, from different majors to short-term to long-term. Some might be free, some might be charging tuition, but I would say that that would be the best bet for you to field any of those opportunities. Our next question is, if each of you could go around the panel, and if you could use one word to describe the culture of your college community, what would it be and why?
My first one would be sisterhood, because one of the things that makes Spelman unique is that it's focused on the Black woman, and it does so at like such a high level of excellence. Like, I feel truly connected to like every person who attends Spelman, because we are part of this larger sisterhood. And I think in that I said it earlier, but you experience the diversity of the community. So there are people there who come from multi-generational wealth, and there are people there who are the first to graduate or first to attend college. There are people who are from, any of the countries in the African diaspora, and there are people who are from down the street in Atlanta, and somehow we're all knit together in this really beautiful sisterhood. And so I would say at Spelman, the describing word that you can ask any alumna, it'll be sisterhood.
I would say illustrious. I love to tell people that I go to Howard. I love to wear Howard gear. I love being on campus. I love the people. When you're a member of the Howard University community, it's just a certain thing about yourself. Like, you hold yourself to high standards. And whenever I tell people I go to Howard, I always have to put illustrious in front of it, because it's the number one HBCU. Like, okay, statistically,
Spelman, I wasn't going to bring it into the space, but Spelman has definitely been the number one HBCU for the last like 20, 30 years. Like,
you're right, that's true.
So I was going to bring it into the space, but since you asked, yes, we are the number one HBCU. Yes, we continue to excel at a high level. And yes, we still love all of our other HBCUs.
I would add on for Howard, I would use the word bountiful. When I think about my time there, and every time I get to go back to the campus, there's just like a richness of energy, of color, of culture, of thoughts. It's just brimming. It's just bountiful.
I would say transformative. There's a difference between, it's made clear while you're at Morehouse that there's a difference between being a man of Morehouse and a Morehouse man. Man of Morehouse comes in thinking that, he's cool, not really sure of his purpose, still figuring things out. And then the Morehouse man is very clear on his purpose, is intentional, is punctual, and is really dedicated to service, and has that self-confidence in him. And that's definitely what I would say. Transformative. Yeah, it's easy.
I mean, I guess we can say the best for next, I guess, the best HBC in the world. But I'm toying between like two words, between holistic and enriching for Tuskegee. So I'm sorry for breaking the rules. I guess we're rule breakers at Tuskegee too, if that's a great one. But I say enriching because I feel like at Tuskegee, you get the full spectrum of everything. You know, you get the spiritual aspect, and it's not a religious affiliated institution, but you're allowed to express, you know, your spirituality and whatever that looks like for you. You get the academic experience where, again, you have teachers who are teaching, you know, content to you that's revelatory. You have the social life, which I'm sure every institution, you know, can attest to, but you have the social life where you can interact with people and create these bonds. I know someone mentioned that their best friends were in their weddings. My best friends are in my wedding as well. And we keep in contact to this day. Even with my professors, we still keep in contact. So definitely enriching and or holistic.
Keldrick, you stole my word, man. Like, what's up with that? So I was actually trying to think of two words too. I was going with embracing and enriching. Now I'll go with embracing and nurturing. Since you can do two, I'm going to do two as well. I've never been embraced before. Like, so I grew up in a Black and brown country. I'm, you know, multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious. People don't know where I'm from. They say I'm Dominican. Like, no joke. And when I got to Morgan, I've never been so embraced before in my life. And because they have such a great music program, they believe in diversity. And when I say diversity, I don't mean just from the African diaspora. Tiago, they try to recruit white students. They try to recruit white Hispanic students. They really believe that in diversity and exchanging ideas. And that's why it's so enriching, and it is rich. I've heard the word, you know, rich. And so like just the different types of peoples and their cultural backgrounds and their points of views that you're going to be exposed to at an HBCU, you will not be exposed to that at a predominantly white traditional college. I'm sorry, it's the truth. And in terms of nurturing, as I said before, they really look out for their students. I'm aware of students for whatever reasons. It could have been financial reasons, you know, issues going on in the family, in the home, or just personal issues. Their advisors fight for them and try to keep them at school for as long as they can. And it's a really caring community. And what I really loved, the other enriching and rich part is my professors. I had professors from all over the globe, and it was amazing. And I don't think, you know, I'm not sure if you would be able to get that experience anywhere else. And as an international student who came from a predominantly Black and brown country that had very false and wrong ideas of what it meant to be Black in America, I think it was really, really important for me to go to an HBCU because that's where I learned what it meant to be, you know, Black in America. And it was eye-opening and it was shocking. And simultaneously, it made me proud and it also made me sad, but mostly proud.
Okay, I think a word that makes me think about my HBCU, and I'm kind of cheating because it's a compound word. I will have to go with well balanced. It's one of our 5 wells, and I'll say well balanced. Like I said, it's one of our 5 wells. Our 5 wells are well balanced, well traveled, well spoken, well dressed, and well read. And to be a Morehouse man, you have to be all of those. You have to be all of those things, which is kind of where the word well balanced come in. And I think that's what makes Morehouse man different. There's this saying where you can always tell a Morehouse man, but you can't tell them much. And I think Morehouse men are looked at sometimes as being arrogant, but I think it's because we know where we come from when we first walk through those gates at Morehouse, and what we, as my brother Tiago said, how we just transform into like these magical, well-balanced, just great people at the end of the day when we walk out of there. So I would say well-balanced, just being well-read, being well-spoken, being well-traveled, being well-dressed. Like that's what make Morehouse men different.
Thank you so much. So many amazing words and adjectives. I love it. So much positivity. So I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So we'll have about time for two more questions and then we'll wrap up. So our next question that's in the chat is, did any of you have the opportunity to study abroad in college or at your university? And if so, could you speak a little bit about that process and what that was like?
Yeah, I studied abroad in Milan in my junior year, and it was amazing. I mean, I was studying PR with my minor was in fashion merchandising. At the time, I thought I wanted to go into fashion PR. And the best part about it was that I got to travel all around that area. Like on the weekends, I'd be going to Barcelona or other parts of Italy. I went to Morocco. And I think actually that sort of planted an early seed for me to be so interested in travel. After I graduated from Howard, I joined the Peace Corps and I lived in Cambodia for 2 years. So I think that was really transformative for me to have that experience. But I did mention earlier that in order to study abroad, I had to jump through a couple hoops to get there. But I'm really glad that I was able to have that opportunity.
Hanley just put in the chat that she hasn't studied abroad, but that Howard has really great study abroad programs. So attesting to what Glenn is just saying. So it seems like you had a pretty transformative experience and that pushed you in the right direction, which is really great. Cool, awesome. So I want to wrap up and ask you all, as we have students that are pretty early on in their college process or haven't even started it yet, to current juniors that are about to jump into the thick of it. As attesting to your experiences, if you have any piece of advice for them or any advice that you would give them about an HBCU or researching an HBCU, if we could go through throughout the panelists and have you each kind of give a piece of advice or any wisdom that you could enlighten them with. Or maybe what would have helped you during that time when you were making that decision.
I was very indecisive when choosing Howard. I definitely was comfortable at Berkeley Carroll. I was very comfortable and I wanted to sort of have that same feeling at whatever school I decided to choose. And since I spent 4 years at BC, I was like, I don't know how I will adjust to the Howard community, but it was honestly the best decision I ever made. I made some lifelong friends. I'm a part of several organizations on campus that I love. I was a student ambassador, Key Society member at Berkeley Carroll, and I'm now a student ambassador at Howard. There are so many things that that just helped me make my decision better. Like I had Miss Middleton, I had my dean at Teak. So honestly, I would say go to the campus, see if you actually love the people there, because you will be spending your next 4 years at that campus. But once I touched down on Howard's campus, I knew that it was my home, my future home. But definitely I would say just go to campus and see if you will want it to be your future home. But I love my HBCU, and I really think that it should be an option out there for students to attend schools like Berkeley Carroll, Packer, St. Anne's.
I'll go next. I think something that played a big role in me picking my HBCU or just deciding to go to a HBCU, aside from the social justice things that I spoke on earlier, where I was very influenced by a lot of the movies that I seen growing up, like Stump the Yard, or even TV shows like Different World. All of those type of shows always kept me fascinated. And then I think another thing that made me want to go to Morehouse was, like I said, I'm from Chicago, so weather played a big part in me wanting to go to Atlanta seriously. Another thing is I thought about the type of learner I am. I know at certain schools or certain universities, it could be maybe, I think, up to 100 people in one class. At Morehouse, the class sizes are really intimate. You typically don't have classes where it's more than 20 people, 15 to 20 people in each class. So it gives you a chance to have that one-on-one time with your favorite professors, and then also the culture that Morehouse has, and also the culture around it. Like right next to Morehouse, because Morehouse is an all boys school. So right next to Morehouse is the illustrious Spelman College. Love Spelman College. And then right next door is Clark Atlanta University. So just being really, really close to those other two campuses as well played a big role in my decision. And it was also a chance to go to the South and experience a whole nother culture that I never experienced before. So all of that mixed with curiosity kind of pushed me towards Morehouse College.
So for me, I guess I'm thinking from the perspective of, 18-year-old going to college and also a freshman, sophomore. During this time period, my advice would be to seize every opportunity and never stop dreaming. I know that sounds so cliche, like, dude, why do you mention dreaming? But I just feel like there's so much beauty in just constantly dreaming and aspiring to do so much more. And so if any opportunity appeals to you, whether that's a scholarship, whether that's a job, whether that's an internship, studying abroad, go for it. My biggest regret at Tuskegee was not studying abroad, like just having an opportunity, as a 20-year-old student, just to go out of the country, have a passport, and just go traveling, backpacking across the world. So just do it. If it aligns to you, go after it. Something that I always remind myself now is that there are no mistakes, only lessons learned and experiences that really shape you. And so if you make a mistake, get back up and just continue moving forward and just taking advantage of everything that's out there for you. So yeah.
For me,
Love what you said. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just
no,
going to add on to what Keldrick was saying. It's just
yeah, for sure.
The beauty in just experimenting. Like there's just so much time ahead, so many experiences to have. And if you do find yourself at an HBCU on that campus, there's so much you can do and try. And I encourage you to do that. All of these little experiences help you learn yourself more, discover more about what you're into, and will lead to that development that happens, that transformation that we've been speaking about.
I was gonna say that for me, I think the advice is that progress is more important than perfection. I think just like maybe just speaking for Jakari and our recent graduates, like we've been heavily influenced by social media, and I know a lot of the young people on this call as well. Pretty much anybody, I guess, we've all been affected by social media and the societal pressures and the constant excellence that you see on there. It can be anxiety provoking. And what I think is interesting, what I've learned at like Morehouse and my HBCU in general, is that there's so many different paths that people take to arrive at a HBCU and then to graduate at an HBCU. My mentor didn't graduate until he was 26. And social media will have you to believe that you got to have it all figured out by 22. And my mentor, Morehouse man, is one of the most successful people that I know. And so I think that's just proof that your path is going to be different than anyone else's. It's never really going to be completely linear. And that's ever more the reason to just like keep believing in yourself and keep on your path and move in faith.
I think that's so wise. You all have just incredible gems to share. Tiago, that really resonated, the idea of approaching it as a journey. And even as someone who graduated quite some time ago, I still very much feel like I'm on a journey. So I think that my advice would be twofold. One, those of you who are in school, who are approaching the college selection process, who are approaching your college application process, a couple of notes. Study and work hard. And we haven't talked about the academic rigor of these schools. We've been focused a lot on community, but it would do you a service to showcase your best academic self. Take the hard classes, try hard things, do well on the SAT, leverage your resources, do that. And then also, you have a really unique opportunity right now where you are in your life to focus on developing yourself as a well-rounded human. You have very few, you don't have kids, like, you might have children, but you don't have like other responsibilities. And so you get to really focus on who you are. And I'll encourage you to use this as an opportunity to lean into that, because then when you're showcasing that full human to the college admissions officers, you're like able to present both the academic and the, the human part of you. When you're in school, I think Glenn said it really well, but take advantage of the incredible opportunity that you have to identify what your gifts are. So my husband always says that what Spelman did for me is it allowed me to go to school the way that a lot of white people get to go to school, which is I get to be Aaliyah as a person, because everyone around me shares most of my two primary identifiers. Everyone around me is a Black woman. And so, whereas in other spaces, I show up as a Black woman, and that's like the context in which people see me. But like at Spelman, I get to see, am I a nerd? Am I like a musician? Am I like an artist? Am I into science? I get to like identify who I am as a human. And I think when you get there, lean into that opportunity to explore those gifts. And part of that, I think, is in what Tiago was saying about the approach. Good night, baby. And being open to just learning new things. So I wish you all so many good things, and I can't wait to hear all about it.
I guess I'll go last. I think Tiago said it I think all of y'all was spitting fire, and I pretty much agree with everything most of y'all said. But I want to add that for me, I think that this is one of the best times in American history to go to an HBCU. There's so much Black appreciation going on within the Black community, and so much awareness about who the Black community is in the United States, and that we exist and we're there and we have HBCUs. It's a really great time to be proud of that and to go to an HBCU and not feel like you have to go to a white Ivy League school to be successful, or to go to a white Ivy League school to feel that you're smart or that you're worthy, or that you are equal, to anyone else. I don't know if you all saw Beyonce's show. She was representing. I don't think she went to an HBCU, but she gave us a shout out. And I think just appreciate that. And I keep speaking from the immigrant experience, because that is my experience. I know of a lot of immigrant parents who have Black children growing up in the United States, and they don't understand their children's world. Because a lot of immigrant Black parents, they live within their own communities, right? So I'm Trinidadian, Caribbean folks, they live in Caribbean neighborhoods mostly, not always. And so they have and they came here as an adult. And so they have a very different, upbringing, and they understand the world differently. And they see themselves as Caribbean, but their children sees themselves as Black American. And I think that's, going to an HBCU will be great for the entire family, not just for the student. So I'm being a little bit, it's all about you, students. Do what you need to do for you. But I think it would enrich the entire family experience.
Absolutely. You all make such great points. I love that the chat is going off right now with just so much information and so much community. It's really great to see. This is being recorded, so eventually we'll send this out to our communities so that other students who weren't in attendance can see this. And we'll try our best, and hopefully all of you can spread the word to your friends about some of the things that we were talking about in the chat. I do want to be mindful, like I said, I want to be mindful of time. So we have reached the end of our panel. And I want everyone to give a virtual round of applause to all of our amazing panelists, as well as Hanley, who had to leave a little early. But this really truly was one of the best experiences that I've had at Berkeley Carroll, of being in a panel like this. And I'm sure, as you can see in our chat, our students really appreciate this. I do want to again thank you so much for your time, your experiences, for being vulnerable, for being honest, and being unapologetic, because this really is such a beautiful time. Mo said, to go to an HBCU, or at least to research an HBCU and understand that this is an experience that could, be the next phase of a student's life. So one more time, thank you so much from all of our schools, the Berkeley Carroll School, the Brooklyn Friends School, Packer Collegiate Institute in St. Anne's. We really appreciate all of your time and dedication. Thank you so much.